Morning Year 7 and welcome to our first Marble Hall cook along, okay? So we've got 3 of these sessions over the next couple of weeks. The first cook along today is going to be making pineapple upside down cake. Now don't worry if you haven't got your ingredients with you right now. You can obviously watch this at a later date if you needed to, and it'll be saved on our school SharePoint so you can access it. And then for today you can just watch it, get familiar with the actual method and write some notes down to help you in whenever you are ready to make it. So to make pineapple upside down cake we need obviously our ingredients and some equipment, okay? So I'm just going to talk you through what we're going to use first. We're going to be using golden syrup first, then some glassy cherries, then some tinned pineapple, then some fat, which is either butter or margarine, then some sugar, in particular caster sugar, but if you don't have caster sugar you can use normal granulated sugar, 2 eggs, and then some self-raising flour. Okay, so there are ingredients, and the equipment that we're going to be using or needing is a wooden spoon, a mixing bowl, a fork, a dishcloth to keep ourselves nice and tidy throughout, and an oven-proof dish. Now we've got a square one. You can use a round one that you would make maybe a Victoria sponge in. It's absolutely fine, whatever you want to use. Even something a bit bigger or something a bit smaller won't have a massive effect on the end result. So don't worry if you haven't got the exact same size or shape as the one I'm using today, okay? But if you've got any questions over your own equipment at home, please feel free to email me and I'll help you and give you some advice over online. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to prepare our base of our dish. Now, as I said, this is a pineapple upside down cake. So when we've prepared our bottom and our sponge, we're going to bake it, and then you would flip it over, okay? And the pineapple, which is on the bottom, will be on the top, hence why it's called upside down, okay? So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our syrup in, okay? Now our syrup is going to add a lot of moistness, but also sweetness to the actual dish and sponge. So it's very important that you do use either honey or syrup for this bit. You can use some sugar if you wanted to as well, but we feel syrup is better and it has a more sweeter flavour. Now, it does say to use a tablespoon, but I'm not going to lie to you. If you want to be a bit more generous, you can be, okay? So I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to make sure I have an equal kind of layering of syrup all over the bottom of my dish, okay? Then, once I've done that, I'm going to get my sliced pineapple. Now I've drained these, okay, so it did come in juice, but I've drained it already, and you will see that I've got actual rings, okay, if I get them out of the dish, which look like that, okay. Now if you don't have these, you have chunks, you can use chunks, that's absolutely fine, you just need to scatter the chunks around the bottom of the dish on top of the syrup, okay. So I'm just going to fit my pineapple rings in the bottom of the dish. Now, this particular tin has 4. Some tins you can have 5, and you can fit 5 in. So if you wanted to, I could fit 5, the 5th one in there if I needed to. Okay? So, I'm just going to wash my hands, my fingers a bit sticky with the syrup, etc. Move that aside. And then the last thing I'm going to put in is my glassy cherries. Now, again, you could put whole cherries in here if you wanted to, or you can half them, so you're only using 2 cherries. If you don't like cherries, again, you don't have to use them, but we do think they add a bit of texture and a nice bit of colour as well, because remember, we eat with our eyes. We want our food to look aesthetically pleasing, okay? So I'm just going to drop a cherry in the middle of each of the pineapple rings, okay? So I'm going to use 4 in total today, but if you guys have got 2, just slice them in half, and that's absolutely fine as well. So again, you can see now I've got 4 rings of pineapples, 4 cherries with syrup at the bottom. Now I can leave that alone. I don't need to touch that now until it goes in the oven, okay? So I'm going to put that to one side, and in my mixing bowl, I'm going to start making the sponge. So as I said before, the sponge will consist of 4 ingredients. You've got your fat, or your butter, or your margarine, your sugar, your eggs, and your flour, okay? So, in my mixing bowl, I'm going to put my butter, and I'm going to put my sugar, okay? And with the back of your wooden spoon, you want to cream it. Now to cream it, it means you're going to basically press the sugar and the fat on the side of the bowl and you're going to develop a pale paste. Now when you cream fat and sugar together, what you are doing is you are adding air, you are trapping air. And that process is called aeration, okay? So we teach you a lot about the food science of why things happen when you are baking or cooking, okay? So if you don't do this, there's a risk that your sponge will be very, very flat, and you don't want that. So with us trapping air into it, When it bakes, the air will want to escape, and that will then make the sponge rise up. We're also using self-raising flour, and the self-raising flour has baking powder inside it, which again is another raising agent. So again, when it heats up in the oven, when it's in our sponge mixture, the air will want to escape, and therefore it will push it up, making it rise, okay? But there's other techniques that we can also do to make sure that we have loads of air into our sponge. We want a nice light, fluffy sponge. If we don't have a nice light, fluffy sponge, and it's going to taste, and it's going to feel, and it's going to look quite unprofessional, okay? So I'm just going to carry on creaming it, and as you can see, I'm just using the back of the spoon, okay? If you haven't got a wooden spoon and you want to use an electric whisk, you can, but if you were in school, you wouldn't be using that. So we're going to try and use the same equipment that you would be if you were in school, okay? Bit of elbow grease, and just literally smear the fat and butter along the outside of it. So as you can see, it's nice and pale. It's a nice kind of sloppy consistency, which is what you want from the creaming. But also what you can't see, obviously, is the air that is now inside this, okay? So we trap the air within the fat from the sugar granules, okay? So now we go on to our next stage. Now our next stage is our eggs. So you get your 2 eggs, and you want to crack them into a bowl, something similar to this, or a measuring jug, okay? It's up to you exactly what you want to use. So just crack your 2 eggs. Now, I always prefer to crack them into another bowl, just in case you get a bit of shelling, because if I went to, say, crack it straight into the bowl, it's going to be more difficult to get the shell out, but also, in case your eggs are off, okay, if you haven't maybe got a date on them, if they're fresh eggs, for example, and you haven't stored them correctly, if you crack obviously an off egg straight into this dish, you're not going to be able to get that out either, okay? So it's always helpful to crack them into a little small dish beforehand, before you do that. Then with a fork, we're going to beat it. Now again, beating is another way of adding air. So again, we are developing the process of aeration here, okay? So we just need to beat it, say for 10 seconds, just to mix up the yolk and the white together. And then we're done. Now, as you can see on my desk, I'm trying to keep everything nice and tidy, okay? I'm wiping down as I go along, because again, I don't want your parents thinking that you can't be independent in the kitchen, okay? You do know how to tidy up, and you will know after these 3 lessons anyway, okay? Now your eggs, you can't add your eggs all at once. You've got to add them in quarters. So you've got to add a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, and to make a whole, okay? So you add a little bit of the egg, and then with your wooden spoon, you want to beat the egg in, okay? Now beat it really, really nice and quick and nice and fast with your wooden spoon. And what will happen is that the egg will bind the mixture together, okay? So make sure you're getting right round the edge of the bowl. And beat it nice and quick. Now some people would say to you, when you add a bit of your egg, to add a little bit of flour, because the flour will also help the eggs not curdle the mixture. Now when I use the word curdle, I mean separate. So what will happen is the fat and the eggs will separate. They will not bind together. But they will bind together if you quickly beat your egg in with your wooden spoon, okay? But if you forget to do that, and it does start to curdle, it does start to separate, and you will know it will separate, because to be honest with you, it will look like baby stick. It won't look like the nicest dish mixture in here, okay? So you will know that it's curdled, because it will be in big lumps. If you know that, then you can add a tablespoon of flour then, okay? But we want to teach you that the beating method is a really, really important method within this recipe to ensure that that curdling doesn't happen, okay? So beat it nice and well. And you will end up with a smooth mixture. Then you add your next pass of your egg in. And basically, guys, by the end of this, your arm should be hurting, okay? If your arm's hurting, then you know you've got it right, because you need to get loads and loads and loads of beating with the eggs to make it nice and smooth and bind it together well. So my third quarter. So again, make sure you're getting right round the side of the bowl. Oh, don't try and spill any like I have. up a minute, there we go. And then our final bit of egg, straight in. Okay. So you use all of your eggs, okay? And then flour. Now this flour's already been sieved. Now some people might not sieve their flour because a lot of flour producers, okay, sieve it before they actually bag it. But I always think it's really important to sieve the flour even after that because it's being compacted into a bag, okay? So sieve it once, even sieve it twice if you want to, okay? Maybe if your flour's been left in you for a while without being used, just sieve it twice, get loads of air into it, okay? So I've already sieved this and all I'm going to do now is just add it straight into my bowl, okay? And then with a spatula, if you haven't got a spatula, you can still use your wooden spoon if you want to, or even a tablespoon. But I'm just going to use my spatula. I'm just going to scrape off some of the excess here on this, off the wooden spoon. And I'm going to fold in a figure of 8. Now you might have heard of that technique before, okay? So I'm just going to fold it in a figure of 8 all the way around until the majority of the flour has been folded into that mixture, and then I can go a bit quicker, okay? Now it's very important that you fold this mixture in because if you don't, you're going to knock all of that air out. So the air that you've added in by beating the eggs, the air that you've added in by sieving the flour, the air that you've added in by creaming your fat and sugar together, you're going to knock it all out. So it's really important that you fold it in and don't beat the flour in, okay? Now I'm making sure I go right round my bowl as well, so I've got all my ingredients incorporated in this. Now I'm going to just switch over to my wooden spoon again, because again I've folded the majority of it in, and I'm not going to beat it too much, I'm just going to beat it a little bit, just so I get a much more smoother batter, okay? And there we go. And what we're going to end up with is a nice smooth consistency of a cake batter, okay? So then, we bring both of them back together, so we bring our oven-proof dish and we bring our mixing bowl together. And again, you might think it's a waste of time, but I don't. I'm just used to doing it this way. I'm going to scrape off the mixture on my wooden spoon, and I'm going to go back to my spatula. I'm going to scrape around the bowl because I want all of the mixture. I don't want to leave any extra around the edges. And I'm going to carefully just place it on the top of my pineapple, my cherries and my syrup. Now, it will not cover it fully, okay? Obviously, if we have more mixture, it would, but for this size tin, it won't, because you are going to spread it out, okay? So I'm just going to make sure I've got all the excess in there. Now, what you won't know is that when it goes in the oven, it will also spread out a little bit more than what it looks like now, okay, because of the heat. So the key thing for this bit is to just make sure that you've covered the majority of the fruit, okay? So don't worry if you can't cover the full entire thing, that's absolutely fine. Just spread it out as much as you can with the spatula or your wooden spoon or your tablespoon. And try and get to the closest to the edges. But like I said, let the heat in the oven do its work, okay? And that will spread the cake batter out for you anyway. I'm going to make sure it's nice and even in its size. And then that is going to go into the oven for around 20 to 25 minutes until the sponge has risen, it's gone golden brown, and then we're going to do something called a knife test when it's baked to know that the sponge is totally cooked, okay? After that, you will then tip it upside down and you can serve it with ice cream, a bit of custard if you wanted to, or just have it by itself. Okay, year 7, so the pineapple upside down cake now should be out the oven. Okay, so it's been baking for about 20 to 25 minutes. And as I said, it should be looking a golden brown colour. Okay, so you can see I've got a nice even colouring of a golden brown colour. Okay, the greaseproof paper has helped it not stick to the tin. So I'm not going to have any issue having to kind of get my knife and scrape around the edges to loosen it up. Okay, the first thing I want to do though is obviously get the plate that I'm going to be serving it on. So I'm going to be using a square plate because the squareness of the dish it makes it more kind of consistent in the shape and size. And all I want to do is just take out the actual dish, the actual cake out of the tin. Okay, so leave that to one side. Then I'm going to just loosen down the paper, and then a bit of a difficult bit, I'm going to place my cake on top of it, and I'm going to flip it over. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And then peel off your greaseproof paper. And as you can see, we've got 4 clear pineapple rings. We've got a lovely deep dark colouring sponge here because of the syrup, okay, because the syrup has caramelised a little bit with our 4 cherries, okay. So yes, this will serve averagely 4 people, but you could serve up to 8 depending on the size of what you want to prepare it as, okay. Enjoy.